I'm Delissa McEwen, and I am here to interview longtime ALO7 tutor Tim Evans.
Hi!
So, Tim, where are you in the world?
I live in Prague. A little bit about it. I mean, it's one of those cities that's kind of a fairy tale. This is the world where all those places come from. It's got a whole bunch of different types of architecture. There's a whole lot of different types of people. A lot of tourists come here, so it's real easy to meet a whole bunch of different people from all over.
Yeah.
All right.
That's pretty interesting. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town outside of Atlanta. Actually, a collection of small towns outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and a little bit inside of Atlanta and such. Yeah.
How'd you end up in Prague?
Ooh, that's a long story, and
let's shorten it then. How long have you been in Prague?
I've been here for 4 years. 4 years. I got here in the beginning of 2016, and then after that, I started with ALO7, I think in September of 2016.
Yeah, I started around the same time, about a month. I was hired like right at the end of September, and I started teaching in October for ALO7, right after you.
Yeah. Oh, then I know you and I have talked about this before. None of this cool stuff existed when we first started. I got my stuff on a zip file in an email.
Right. I got mine on a zip file too. Yeah.
Yeah. They were like, here, use this stuff, and I'm looking at it like, okay, it's got to do something with this, right?
Right. That was like when you really had to have, your props and your TPR. I mean, you still have to have props and TPR, but you really, if you wanted to expand the lesson, it was totally on you because it was, like you said, PowerPoints.
Yeah, nothing moved. You couldn't click on stuff and it would read it for you and stuff.
Part of me still misses that because I really miss, they'd have like a bunch of different little cartoons where you could just like expand the topic, where I find with so much animation, so much is moving that, I don't know, in some ways it was easier to initiate conversation with the still picture.
Sometimes. I also like the moving ones for a different reason too, because you can really drag their attention to that one place, especially, for example, there's one that's about weather and it's a snowy day, and then Ola chucks a snowball at Peely, right?
Yeah.
You can usually get oh wow, I like to do that with my friends if they're in a place where they get snow, right?
Right.
So for a different reason, they're also good as well. But the still ones are easier to what's the word I'm looking for here? They're a little easier to move back and forth from.
Yeah.
Right. So like this is obviously one picture, and we're going to talk about this for a minute, and then now we have something completely different that we're doing something else with. Right. So swap over activities. That's a good cutoff point, I guess. Right. For different.
Well, they both have their pluses and minuses. So let me see. So you got to Prague in 2016, and that's when you started with ALO7. How did you decide to start teaching online? Had you been a teacher before?
I taught when I got here in Prague. I'm gonna back up for a second. I got the TEFL certification, right? One part of the plan was we were going to teach English until we figured out something else that we wanted to do, right? I did not know I was going to enjoy teaching as much as I do.
Right.
I had no idea. The only people that I had taught before this, I have a whole bunch of experience with kids. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and I'm the youngest, right? So I've got a bunch of experience with that and my cousins and such. But as far as teaching kids anything, I had never done that on a formal basis. Before I came to ALO7, I got a job here. I was teaching business professionals. I was going to businesses and I was teaching them, and I was having a good time a little bit with that, but it wasn't as much fun as this. You can only have suit and tie businessmen hop on one foot so many times until they don't want to play anymore, right?
Right.
They want to be real buttoned down, and they want the formulas,
right,
verb plus, ing, all that stuff. That's the stuff that adults usually want, and I liked it okay, but then maybe 2 months after I got that job, I was running around the city. They told me, oh, your students are going to go on vacation, and they didn't do it in time for me to figure something out. So that's when I lost my job, and this was right after my daughter was born.
Right. Wow.
This was right before my daughter was born. Right. This was maybe Oh man, maybe 2 months, maybe 2 months. So I find out I'm about to be a dad for my first kid, and then I'm in this new country where I'm trying to start a new life and stuff, and then I find out pretty much I'm going to lose my job right after, right after I get everything kind of settled. After that, I was without a job for, oh man, maybe 3 or 4 months until eventually I found ALO7 on Craigslist.
That's where I found it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ad was on Craigslist, and at the time I was hungry and I was desperate, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, if I don't do something pretty soon, in a couple of months, we're gonna be hungry, you know?
Right, there's gonna be more hungry mouths.
Yeah, yeah. So then when I found ALO7, I was like, okay. Oh, sorry, in my cup, it's empty though. I figured I was like, I'll give this a shot, you know, to try and do it. And then once I decided that this was the bet that I was going to put in, it was just like, I have to do this to the best of my ability or else it's not going to work. I have the opportunity I really saw the potential of what this could be as long as I did a little suffering at the beginning. Yeah. I'll never forget my first student. Her name was Cindy. And she was 8 years old, and she was the only student in the class, and I was super terrified of her. I was like, hi, my name is Teacher Tim. Please talk to me, because if you don't, then I don't know what else I'm going to do, right? And she could see it. She could see it on my face that I was like, afraid, you know. I was like, man, if it doesn't work, what else am I going to do, you know? And then she, instead of like, needling me about it, she decided she was going to help me, you know. So so she gave me she just threw me a whole bunch of bones, you know. And then as I started getting better at picking up on them, I started slowly developing the way that I teach now, which I guess we'll probably talk about a little later on. But that's how I ended up with ALO7. And then I was like, I was poor and I was looking at the money doing this, stressed out and stuff, right? And then I found that I could teach 7 days a week here. I found out I could choose my own hours. I figured out that I was like, at least if I can do this, at the time it was only 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day, I can pay the rent like this. Right. And then afterwards, I can figure something else out. I can go out and teach other people or whatever, right? Yeah. I had no idea that I was going to like it as much as I do, and I had no idea that I was going to be good at it. I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm the greatest, you know, but it's not like that. But my students improve and they enjoy my classes and such, and that's an emotionally, everyone knows that once the student gets it, you know, it's like victory. You know, I've literally thrown my hands in the air. Yes, you know, after you spend some time with some kid that's just struggling, you know. It's not even when they do it perfectly, it's the ones that make the most progress that are the most satisfying. And I found out that feeling was really, I've never ever known anything like that before. So that's why I stayed and why I teach the way that I do and such, because teaching is a privilege. Truly, I have an opportunity to not only teach them English and stuff, but try to give them a bit of my worldview, you know, try to make them think of things that they might not have thought of before, right? And you have to really be the right kind of person to do that long-term successfully, right? I guess, because you can really, if you're not the right person, you tell a bunch of kids that you just don't care about what they think, and that you can really hurt them on the inside like that, you know?
You've clearly discovered, you know, your passion in life, because, you know, not everyone is a teacher, because like you said, you can do damage if you don't, you know, show that you care about their opinion. And that's what, I mean, I'm like you, you know, I had taught before, but only in tiny small groups and never online. And I just think it's such a privilege, and I love the cultural exchange. You know, you get to kind of give your opinions, but then you get to hear from them, and they're so interesting, and they're all different. You know, I had one girl, you know, talk about, like, you know, we had talked about her grandmother dying, and that's not like a topic that's really covered in the curriculum. And you know, but I mean, she handled it well.
If that kid needs to talk about that, right? That kid might have very few ways to express that in their lives. You know, I mean, morning's a little, that's like the extreme example, but say something like, I don't know, little things pile up and bother people, right, over time. And then I feel like some of these kids don't have anybody in their life that's really asking them how they're feeling, right?
Right. Yes.
That's like, hey, how are you? And they're all like, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, but how are you? You know, like.
I think that, you know, your passion, you can help your students unpack their day. And so if they had a bad day at school, you have the opportunity, because you're teaching them in the evening, to turn the rest of the day or the evening around. And I think that you're really good at that. And that's why you're one of the top tutors. But let me look at my questions. Let's see. So I only have a couple more, but I mean, I think part of me thinks you've covered it, but like I have on my list, what's your favorite thing about teaching online?
That's a hard one.
I know.
If I had to describe it like this, it would be, I mean, I like those little victories that I was talking about. That's fantastic. But I also really enjoy outside of, like, this is a bit outside of teaching. But the amount of time it's allowed me to spend with my daughter, being able to spend, because many fathers miss those very beginning years because they got to go out and make money, a bunch of it. But this allowed me to be around her, and more. I think that that allowed me to enjoy it more, because I could then be less stressed out about it. You know, hard to explain, because it gives me that. It allows me to have her sitting here watching cartoons if necessary, right, while I'm teaching and stuff, and I can like be there taking care of her classes and stuff. If I had a 9-to-5 job outside, I would not be able to do that, right? Right,
and then you might be worrying about, if you had a 9-to-5, you might be worrying about getting to spend time with her, and now that worry has been removed.
Exactly.
Time is built in.
But as far as like actually being inside of classes and teaching and stuff, that's there's so many fantastic things about teaching. Like the best one is probably this one. Sometimes you have this kid, and you'll have maybe the two other kids in the class are like way like miles ahead of this kid, right? And he sits there for maybe 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, like and one day you catch that kid all by himself, right? And you bring the lesson to where he can handle it, and then you see that kid turn into the most hardworking, most improved student that you have. I had this kid that exactly happened. I forget his name. But anyway, I caught him by himself. He was in a 50-minute class with 3 other students that were just blowing him away all the time. But Robin, his name was Robin. But when I caught him by himself, I saw him trying really, really hard. And so I put it in my report. I usually don't put anything in my comment section, nothing. Right? Because when I do put comments down, I want it to be impactful, right? So when I caught this kid by himself, I wrote him a report. I was like, listen, Robin, I see you trying really hard. I know that you're working on this outside of it and such. And then after that, he was the only student that always came to my class. And then every stupid game that I gave him, every single weird activity and songs and all that kind of stuff, right? He just did everything. He just threw himself into every single activity that I put in front of him every time. And that, I think, is my favorite part. Core of what I like to do in teaching is I try to offer, not just teaching, but people generally, is I try to offer them a chance to be genuine, right? Unfiltered. The more personal that you get with your students, the more personal they will get with you. Right. You know? And everybody likes to talk about themselves.
That's right. But you were talking about when a student really challenges you. I host the virtual office a lot, and that's one of our main questions in the virtual office and in Peely's Playhouse is how to handle those students that really try to push your buttons.
You just have to. What do? I just ignore them. I just like my frame is my students cannot shake my frame. This is my mindset. When I walk into my classroom, first of all, I am going to have a good time. Me. Yes. Right? Because I discovered the more relaxed and the more fun I was having over time, the kids will slowly they will adapt that energy. As long they will adopt, they'll adopt that energy as long as when they come to test you, you don't fail, you don't shake, right? It's like, all right, kid, dude doesn't want to play. Click, mute, right? And then you go and have some fun with the other students that do want to learn and such, right? And then usually I don't have to like, all right, so sometimes I make a big joke out of it. I'll be like, I don't let my students speak any Chinese. I'll just be like, Tulsa, speak English. And then I'll go right back to what I was doing, right? And then make some weird face about it. But that's mostly, I think, about creating a tone inside your lessons where, one, your students aren't afraid to make mistakes. That's creating that kind of energy. And also, I try to do this where I'm just the goofiest person in the room, right? So, because some of our students are afraid of looking foolish with their peers and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, I sound weird because my English is not so great, but that dude's got a shoe on his head right now. You know, that kind of energy. So, and then I habitually laugh at myself if I make mistakes. I highlight my own mistakes as well and laugh at myself, and they laugh at me. And the biggest thing is to keep things light and playful.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
Fun. And if you, that to me, inside of a program, like the overarching program, 15 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever, is more important than any single, please, I know what I'm about to say is going to be a little controversial, but in any single class, any single set of vocabulary or language structure, it's more important than that. It's more important than that one set of words. It's more important than that one set of whatever language you're trying to hit. Then, so if I find out that I have a whole bunch of students that are just not into whatever it is, sometimes I'll just throw it all away, the whole piece of it. I mean, I'll sit there with the lessons and stuff, and I already know the language points and that kind of thing. Right. I have something planned, and then it just falls dead. I'll just throw the whole thing away and find something that those kids first can understand, and then secondly are going to enjoy, right? Yeah. But going back to problem students, if you come with that energy and you just kind of keep doing what you're doing, and eventually it happens like this. You'll do something like this. How many watermelons do you think you can eat to listen? And then some kid will be sarcastic. He'll roll his eyes at you and he'll go, I can eat 10 watermelons. And you go, 10 watermelons, right? And then you get a couple of cheap laughs. And then that kid is having fun like that, because laughter is the same as like rolling a snowball down a hill. Once you start it, it's so much easier to get more after that. You don't have to work so hard for it. And if you can build up that kind of energy, usually kids will test me for the first few classes. Maybe if they're having a bad day and they're real wolf, they'll do it again at some point to see if they can get away with something. But for the most part, I don't have any trouble students.
Yeah, I've only since 2016 had maybe 3 in the course of time, and not really. It was more like you're saying. Like, I just find, I try to tell tutors is the same as you. You just can't let them shake you. You just have to keep projecting your positive attitude and trying new things. Like I would say my problem students were more, they just needed a different challenge. One of them, he just, like, once I figured out what made him click, he was very into basketball and soccer. If I used basketball and soccer to talk to him, he was fine. Another one, it was I don't know, Captain America or one of the superheroes always came to class. So for like 10 classes in a row, we just had conversations where Captain America would answer,
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a matter of unlocking who they are, in my opinion.
You were asking about what my favorite thing about teaching online and stuff is. Yeah. That's another thing that's really, really cool, because all the students are fantastic students. All of them. Right? Yeah. You have to figure out how they want to have fun and how they want to learn and whatnot. So each one is a bit of a puzzle, right? You go and you poke them and you see what happens, and you give you some language and you correct them, and then you see what they want to talk about and all that kind of stuff. And then through that, you find this crossroads of what they're capable of talking about and what they want to talk about. And that is the point where you engage that kid,
Exactly. Okay. So what piece of advice would you give to new tutors? Like, what's the one thing that new tutors should try to do?
Relax first. Yeah. When I was on the QC team, the ones that had the most like problems, you could tell they really wanted to do a really good job, right? But they were like this, like,
yeah.
Find ways that you are gonna have fun inside your class because you are leading the interaction, even if it's 50 students and you have 10 teaching assistants, and they're still all looking at you to tell them what to do. You know, so yeah. The energy that you bring into your lessons is going to be the energy you're going to get back from your students. And if you have 3 hyper kids and you pour fear and anxiety on them, then you're going to get that back. Or maybe they'll decide they want to pick on you to see what happens, right? So the best thing I could really say with them is try to, at the very beginning, if I had to pick one thing, I would say you have fun inside of your classes. You find some things that you think you're going to be fun, and then whatever language you're trying to use to get the idea across, take about half of it out and use your hands instead.
Right. You're right. Yes, definitely.
People worry about the TPR so much. It seems like such a tall order, but really all you have to do is find some way to make some kind of connection to a word to a concept. That's all you, maybe not a word, but a concept. It's just, it could be your tone of voice. It could be your facial expressions. It can be your hands, right? This is TPR. Jump, 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 you know? Right? So don't worry so much about that. Consume all the knowledge there is on the site. All that stuff in the resource tab is fantastic. I still go in there every once in a while and watch a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But it really, if I could give one piece, it would be do whatever things that you're going to need to do to make sure that you are comfortable inside of your classes, so that then when the kids see you being confident and playful and fun, then they will give you that same energy back. That's the best advice I would do, because I feel like I could sit here and teach like, this is how you do it, and you say these words, and then you give this response, and you're looking for these things and whatnot. But it's really underneath all of that stuff. That's the concept. That's the concept. Is the more comfortable you are, the more comfortable your students will allow themselves to be. And then you can get away with things like dropping some great joke and then nothing happens and the students laugh at you because nothing
happens. Right, exactly.
Right? That's important.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was good answer. So thank you so much, Tim, for letting me interview you, and we will see you online.
Cool. You have a nice day, Jalissa.
You too.
We're ALO7, we're singing it out. We're teaching leaders, we're teaching lessons learned.